You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hey folks, we're back here on the WrestlingRewind.com, the Truepenny Channel, and Nerd to Know Media. Decided to do an extra show this week because we haven't done one in 2 weeks. I have nothing to do tomorrow, and I'm here with Martin. We're having a great time talking about everything other than what we were supposed to do because Boy in Your House, number 6, is a pile of shite. But
Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself was what Christian said to Edge. I've been holding it in. We've been doing a live radio show for the past hour, so we can't swear. Go fuck yourself was what Christian said to Edge. They were the 3 greatest words in wrestling history. They made him the top heel in the business. Go fuck yourself. Sorry, folks. I just needed to get that out.
And
go fuck yourselves.
And I really was trying to cue up Martin to say that in a much nicer way. To be like, the reason why we're doing this on the podcast only is so Martin can swear. But you beat me to it, so fair play.
See what it was? I remember we were in a pub in Cork once. I don't know how we managed it, but we horsed a load of pints in us, and then we were like, right, let's head back to the hotel. And whatever route we took back to the hotel took us through, must have been the only streets in Cork that don't have another pub on them. Absolutely bursting for a ways. Right, yeah. But I held it. We eventually got to the hotel, and we got in. It's building, and we get in the hotel, and we got up the elevator and in the door, and I held it all that way, but the last 3 steps to the toilet, I couldn't make it, and I ended up just pissing myself, literally as I opened the toilet door. And that's because, like, here, I sat the whole way through our radio broadcast. I didn't say it. And I knew you were teeing me up for, like, a really nice poetic...
I was. I
couldn't wait. Go fuck yourself.
I genuinely was.
I couldn't wait.
Martin's just like, no, wait longer.
I made it the whole way through, and once again, I blew it on the last 3 steps.
Well, look, I have to say, you know, it was a really cool moment to see. The only thing about it is, it's like, it's funny because when you're like, oh, he's the greatest heel, and other people are saying it as well, not just you. I'm just like, he always has been.
Oh yeah.
Christian Cage became, like, when he came back in 2006, you know, to WWE, and he was like super over, and I would be the only one on the planet who would buy a Christian t-shirt. You know, people were like, why? I'm like, oh yeah, you didn't watch.
And I'm
Impact,
even,
you know?
when I say, oh yeah, I'm not saying, oh yeah, like, I agree, like, we're both right. I'm saying, oh yeah, you were right. I was saying, I didn't follow Christian WB, certainly didn't follow him at TNA. And whenever he was announcing AEW, I was like, that's pretty cool, I suppose, blah blah blah. But man, this last year, he has been just a revelation. Just, I love the bluntness of it. They're like, hey, Christian, we want you to be a heel. So we're thinking, like, what kind of gimmick would you go for? You know, like, take the piss out of the fans, like, talk about the sports team, dead fathers.
No,
but all the wrestlers you have with dead fathers, and I will take the piss out of their dead fathers.
but the thing about it is, it's like,
Jesus.
He's never been given, you know, the free reign outside of somewhere like Impact. Like, his range is incredible. He just never got to use it because WWE were like, well, one, Vince didn't like him and would put like a bit of blue dot around his face.
What was that about?
I don't know. I don't
because he's not like.
I don't know what anyone
like overtly ugly or.
No, but I mean, when that's your starting off point, I don't think you're going to be able to grow from that. But that's just what it was.
This is the man who ran on pay-per-views Henry O'Godwin, but Christian needs a blue dot over his face.
Again, man, there's been better people than me trying to understand Vince McMahon, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to do that because it's so insane.
So, look, and I don't know if it'll ever happen because he's so maybe he has to die. Because he's so litigious. Even if you did a film with Vince McMahon, like he'd still sue you. But the film of his life is going to be incredible.
But nobody will believe it. That's the thing, because it's going to be so crazy.
And the worst part is, because the general public, like the main thing that the general public know about wrestling is, oh, it's fake. And then you try to go, oh, no, it's predetermined and blah, blah, blah. But the main thing the general public knows is that it's fake, that you could do an honest-to-God, true-to-life, not one word of a lie film about Vince McMahon's life, and people would still go, nah, that's bullshit.
But no, to be fair, though, as someone, who does a podcast, knows about blah, 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 been a wrestling fan my whole life, when that film does come out, there's still going to be part of me where I'm like, no, that's bullshit. Because it's going to be so crazy. I mean, when you hear about certain things, you're like, no, there's no way that actually happened. And then it's like, no, it did. You're like, whoa, okay. Like, Dark Side of the Ring, for example, right? You're watching that sometimes, you're like, no, there's no way. There's no way that's real. And then it is, and you're like, man, what the fuck, So,
yeah, like at one stage, all the territory promoters got together and literally had a meeting about hiring a hitman to kill Vince McMahon. Like, that's a real thing that happened about wrestling. Like, I don't think people who aren't into wrestling could comprehend that, fake fighting or whatever could be taken so incredibly seriously.
But see, like, right.
And that's before we get into all the rapes. Alleged. But
the thing about it is, right, when I think it's because there is no catharsis, right? Like, at least in sport, it's simulated combat. The whole point of it is that it's supposed to simulate, tribalism and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
You get that with wrestling as a byproduct, but you don't get it as the product. You know what I mean? Like, you don't watch wrestling to be your tribe versus their tribe. It's like, oh, I like this character. It's a soap opera. It's a show with some really good kind of sport elements to it. Where the tribalism comes out is in the backstage side of it, which is why AEW fans hate WWE fans, TNA fans were like off to the side, nobody, that kind of thing. And that's where that kind of comes out. So no, it doesn't shock me that would happen in wrestling. But when you think about it, you're like, what? That's crazy. And, it's not until you're actually in the echo chamber of being a wrestling fan on the internet that you actually see it. I mean, we make a lot of jokes about not going on Twitter. Man, people say some crazy shit on Twitter.
Genuinely.
Unhinged nonsense.
No matter what, like we said it earlier about wrestling, but like if you're listening to this show, we assume you're a wrestling fan. But no matter what your interest is, like it doesn't matter what fandom you're involved in or what thing you happen to like, don't go on Twitter because it will make you like it less.
Like, okay, I was like, Ireland just played tonight, right? Did you watch the match?
No, what did we play in?
Oh, it was terrible. It was football. So, it was soccer for Americans. The Irish football team.
Soccer for me. I think it depends if you're from a big GAA area or
fair.
Not. Like where I'm from,
that's fair.
It would be soccer, but that wouldn't be like no one would be like saying that to like make a point. They'd just be saying it just because if you say football, they'd automatically assume you mean Crossmaglen Rangers.
No, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. I mean, I don't do the football thing. I'm not, you know.
Couldn't care less.
I couldn't care less, but it was on.
I like my sports fake.
I like my sports fake, exactly. But it was on. I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this, and it was terrible. I mean, it was against Greece, and it was like 2-0, and it was the worst performance.
Did we win?
No, we didn't. We got absolutely destroyed.
The Greeks.
2-0. It was terrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really bad. It's their fifth loss in a row, and it just keeps getting worse for them, right? But after their last loss, I went on Twitter and I noticed, you know, Irish discussion, you know, on the Irish team. They are the single worst community I've ever met on Twitter. Couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. And I thought wrestling fans are bad on it. It's bizarre, you know. So look, no matter what it is, you're gonna, for some reason, everyone on, like, everyone's favorite niche, you're gonna find just the dregs on that. And I don't know what it is. I think it's just because it's a short way to communicate. It's direct. It's, you know, stuff can get lost in translation, but it is just like
it's a mixture of the short way to communicate. For me, I think you're right there. That's the big one, because
I think that's what it is.
Character limit leaves absolutely no room for nuance or explanation or subtlety or anything like that. I think it's also the anonymous nature of it allows people to give into their sort of worst inclinations that they would normally keep under control in public. But I think also what happens is that there's a kind of a circular effect where maybe people go into it like genuinely meaning to have like proper, you know, discussions about something that, like, a shared interest that they enjoy. And then some arsehole says something, and then they, because the word limit is so short, they respond back snappily, and then that just becomes the sort of conversation on it. It just becomes that kind of short, sharp, hi, here's the thing I think. Well, I don't really have a rebuttal, but you are a cunt, you know. Like,
oh man, like, I think that's probably what it is, you know. And it's what I liked about Twitter was the fact you could just like live tweet stuff or whatever, but the short nature of it allows you to do that. But particularly when it's something as nuanced as, you know, a fandom or tribalism, or that's why you don't do politics as well on that. Holy hell, never do that. It's a terrible idea. Or any kind of social, never do that either. Like, because all that nuance is gone.
Yeah,
and you can't actually really get a point across in such a limited time. Now, I know it's a little bit more, but, you know, it's only for the fact that, like, I genuinely thought wrestling Twitter was the only thing affected by this. And it's, when I saw it with sport as well, like actual sport, I was like, wow, okay. So,
do you know when it really hit me that this isn't just, because I was the same, I thought it was just wrestling. When it really hit me, this is all of Twitter, was when I saw and I only accidentally clicked into them because of an article. I saw the most vicious arguments about The Walking Dead. And I was like, how in the name of God is The Walking Dead community, the 4 fans they must have left, how do they all hate each other?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like...
and they're sitting around, like, literally, like, so I read this article and it led me down this Twitter rabbit hole. Walking Dead fans argue amongst themselves about ratings, about like, oh, The Walking Dead gets this, but actually Fear the Walking Dead did better ratings. Yeah, we're Team Fear the Walking Dead. It did better ratings than...
What?
It's Twitter. It just makes people mental.
Yeah, no, the advice is don't go on Twitter. Reddit is pretty good sometimes.
It's mad because Reddit's even more anonymous, but it seems to have some sort of self-regulation. Maybe it's the down voting or whatever, where if you're
but also you can actually expand upon points on Reddit.
Yes.
That's the thing. You can actually like make points, right? I think it's a combination of just the fact that it's so direct. There's very little filter on it, and it's limited.
Yeah.
So it's just these like spur of the moment thoughts that can't be expanded upon really. And they're trying to use it in such a way that you're trying to have like a conversation. And you can't. It's like, I don't know. It's just not a good way to do it.
People say stuff in frustration, right? But if it's Reddit where they have the space to expand, they go into whatever the issue is, and then once they get to the end of it, they go, do you know, actually that comment at the start is kind of undermining the really good points I've made here, so I'm going to delete that comment at the start. Whereas Twitter doesn't give you the space to go into like the really good expansion. It just gives you the space to have the really frustrated moment. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, no matter, like, there are certain communities on Reddit. There's one specifically that's just, oh god, I just can't. But that's very few and far between. They're like, the wrestling kind of stuff is always really good. You know, even if it's a really ridiculous take, they'll still like expand upon it. You're like, okay, that's interesting at least to read. There's no like frustration really as a default. The frustration, yeah, I mean, you get bad communities, good and bad communities everywhere, you know, but
yeah,
it's I think you're right. It is like a self-regulating thing, you know, where you can be like, oh, actually, that's a really good idea or whatever. There's at least some nuggets that you can actually find even in the worst part of it. In Twitter, it's all bad.
It's all
like consistently. It's a hellscape. So I mean, I you know, that's why that's why when we say we don't go on Twitter, it's not worth it. I mean,
we 100%
genuinely mean it.
But speaking of Twitter meltdowns, Dara, to take us back to
this is it.
The purpose of our podcast, not just shitting on Elon Musk.
Well, hold on. Look, I'm not shitting on Elon Musk. I mean,
I am.
Yeah, fair enough. I Twitter as a whole, like, I'm just like, it's not a good platform. Jack Dorsey's the guy you have to be upset for that. Like, he came up with it. But I mean,
to take us back to the sort of focus of the podcast,
yes,
and talking about Twitter meltdowns,
yes,
what did you think of the return of the Tuesday Night Wars?
Well, this is what we were setting up to, you know, but we had to give context. You know, that's what this whole podcast is about, giving context to crazy events that happen in wrestling. And you know what? I was in Paris. I'd been up since 4 a.m, and I just landed. I did a whole day in Disney. It was great. Went to bed, woke up the next day, and I was like, what the hell happened? What happened? Because you know, when you haven't really stepped for a while, and then you've had a full day, and you're still kind of adjusting to the time difference, all that kind of stuff.
And you wake up in an unfamiliar.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and you're just like, what, and you're still trying to get your bearings. So I was sitting there in a Starbucks on the way into Disney, and I'm like, what?
Dara, be culturally appropriate. It's Le Starbucks.
Le Starbucks. How rude of me. And yeah.
It's like when Chris Jericho trying to speak Spanish to Sammy Guevara, and he's like, I don't speak Spanish.
But yeah, I was sitting there, I was kind of like just going through my phone, and I was like, what? And I thought it was a joke, you know, because I mean, it's so crazy. Like, everything that, like, okay, so the build up was the Undertaker's going to come back. That's pretty cool. I was like, how is he going to come back with, you know, he said goodbye to the hat and the coat and stuff. We'll get to that in a second. But it was like, oh, all this kind of stuff turned up. And I wasn't really watching any content. I wasn't reading that much content because I was on vacation. But I did hear that Triple H was knighted, so he is completely in control of creative. And that was cool. I didn't expect it to happen. I'll be honest with you. I didn't expect it to happen that fast. It seems like what happened on Tuesday has fundamentally reset our perception of wrestling in 2023.
The funny
overnight,
thing is,
literally overnight.
Yeah, because the funny thing is that literally every other time over the past many years that we've heard, oh, Vince McMahon's gone, oh, Vince McMahon's not in creative, oh, Vince, yeah, you'd be like, yeah, right. But this time, because he's not the owner, not the boss anymore, because it's TKO and not WWE, this time you think, Actually, yeah, maybe he is actually gone.
Yeah, and it seems like not only were they like, I know that and it leads into the Tony Khan's thing, and apparently like he's been told his phone is to be taken away from him, which is a bit harsh. Just delete the Twitter app. I mean, you know what this is? I call
Well,
this.
what about the tweets? What do you think?
Well, look, I'm gonna all I'm gonna say about this is the same thing I say about J.K. Rowling, right?
Oh my God!
Hold on.
Wait.
I personally hate Harry Potter. I personally hate Harry Potter. I vehemently. I really do not like that brand. Never have. Right.
Yep.
Like ever, my whole life, I passionately hate it. But I was like, okay, whatever. You know, it's annoying, but I'll deal with it. And then this woman just couldn't stop tweeting. It was like, listen, love, go spend your money, put the phone down. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. You don't need to do anything else. Just put the phone away. That's all you got to do. All right.
Well,
She never.
She avid Black Books and Father Ted fan. I have a similar
Same thing. No,
story about Gremlin.
Exactly, same thing. This is exactly the same thing, right? And this is a lesson that neither one of those have learned. They just keep doubling down. And I think Tony Khan now is kind of going down that same boat where it's just like, oh, we gotta keep tweeting. It's like, no, buddy, listen, you're not helping yourself. You gotta just put the phone away. And it's again, it goes back to what we said. This is why we set this up, folks. We are professionals at what we do, which professionally suck. But it's like,
I mean, it really depends what you're sucking. That can be a good or a bad thing.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. But no, like we were, we wanted to kind of give context on this, which is like, I fundamentally believe that no matter how good your point is, you will not be able to express it over such a short space of time. Now, J.K. Rowling again and Graham Linehan, like, they're saying a lot of worse things than Honey Khan's saying, right? But at the same time, you can see how this is it's not helping anyone's reputation to just double down on that. And his tweets, they were kind of funny, but it's like, you're the head of the second largest wrestling promotion since WCW.
But
this is what you're doing.
This is my take on it. Like, I completely agree with the J.K. Rowling and Graham Linehan stuff. In fact, I 100% agree with it. I hate Harry Potter. I couldn't care less about J.K. Rowling, but even I was going, just relax.
Yeah, just spend your money.
And I love
and put the phone down. That's all you got
love
to do.
Graham Linehan. I was like, you've written 3 of the greatest comedies in history.
True.
Just retire in glory. Just be the most. He could just be the most beloved, like one of the most beloved Irishmen ever, by just shutting the fuck up.
That's it. That's all you got to do. And it's just like, I don't understand.
Where I think is different with Tony with these tweets is, I think, to me, this is like cheeky banter. This is like having a bit of a crap, like, because they lost the Tuesday night war, like lost it significantly. It was 900,000, 600,000, something like that.
They got smashed to bits. Yeah.
So like, I think the fact that he was going out there and doing that was like, that was hilarious. So it was like a cheeky wee dig, blah, blah, like whenever you've lost something, like just beyond like even argument, and then you go out and you make a crack about it. I thought this was great, and I thought it just completely brings to bear the absolute softness of WWE fans on Twitter, and not in general, because at all times we have to remember that Twitter is a very small percentage of the population. But the absolute softness on them, that they would see this like gag and just lose their fucking minds over it. Like, absolutely, like, didn't even stop to consider that it was a joke. Just lost their shit. And I don't know, I think it kind of loses some of the, like, if we can't even have like sort of friendly rivalry, like, like Armand, Tyrone taking jabs at each other, but we don't actually hate Tyrone. Like, Tyrone's only over the road. It's a lovely place.
It's a lovely place.
Like, I don't know, but it's just Twitter polarizes everything, tribalizes everything, to the point where, yes, lots of people on it are horrible, but also even if someone's just like having the crack. I think Tony must be a certain percentage of Irish because he loves to have the crack.
From what I hear, is a bit, it was a different substance that he's a big fan of.
I've heard that he didn't really strike me as a, did he strike you as particularly coked out of it? I lived in Canada for a year. I've had my fair share of cocaine. It doesn't.
It makes a lot more sense. I'll be honest with you.
I don't know. Maybe as a billionaire, maybe the quality of cocaine he has access to is better than the quality of cocaine I had access to. We're definitely off the radio, aren't we?
Oh yeah, we're.
But anyway, yeah, I think
James is going to listen to this. He's going to be like, "Oh my god, we need to have words."
But I think yes, Twitter just in general is bad. But the Tuesday Night War. Did you watch both shows, or what did you?
I saw neither because, as I said, I only flew back yesterday, and the internet isn't incredible in Paris in general. It's not really that great in Disneyland, which is weird. I don't really know why. I mean, it's okay. I think it's just like whatever way. I have nerdy opinions on that, which we're not going to get into, but I do think it's.
Listeners, weep for Dara. He couldn't watch the wrestling because he was off in France, on Paris,
exactly.
going to Disneyland, and
So this is why I wasn't.
And the internet wasn't great, so
it was.
weep for Dara.
Well, I couldn't watch it, could I? It just wasn't working. There was no physical way.
Room service left so much to be desired.
The caviar was not great.
French euros just don't feel the same as the Irish euros. You couldn't get a decent spud in all of Paris.
Can't actually. The food is pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. In Paris, it's weird. Like the weird thing about food, right? In France, people think, oh, the food's great. It's not. You're thinking of Italy. All the good stuff you think about, and this is no shade to France. I love France. It's actually really nice. I go there a lot, but all the really good stuff that people think is in France, it's not. It's in Italy, and that wasn't said to me. That was said to my friend who was in Italy, and I was like, oh man, that's actually very, very true. So
is France not like, you don't really think of France for like main courses or whatever, but is France not the place you go for desserts, for like a boulangerie or?
I mean, you can do, but I'm not really like into desserts that much. So, I mean, like the food's not bad. It's just like it's not, you can go to Italy and really get some great food. But that was why I didn't watch any wrestling, because I barely got to use the internet. But as I said, when I pulled my phone out, I had a look at what was there. I had a Twitter actually did come in handy to be able to kind of skim through both, and one was substantially better than the other.
Dare I ask which one?
Dude, The Undertaker came out.
So I think this is where we get the fundamental difference between wrestling fans, like fans of the industry.
I was sports entertained, okay?
God, I hate that phrase so much. Dave, I love you. I'm really sorry. Don't take that personally. But every time you say that, I want to climb into my laptop and slap you.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, I was. You're right. From what I saw in the AEW stuff, it was very much what you'd expect. A strong,
it's incredible. They were putting on pay-per-view level matches, like genuinely brilliant stuff, and like they got slaughtered because like John Cena came out. Hey guys, John Cena, here's my cum towel, and I think NXT is the best place. Can't believe I've never been here before. I'm going to fuck off now, and The Undertaker's going to come out and ride his trike around. Jesus Christ.
Come on, man. It was cool. Not John Cena. You know what was weird, right? The fact that it was in NXT, and you're like, look, the whole presentation of it was just kind of bizarre. The matches weren't great because obviously it's the Unfellas and young ones doing what they're doing.
It's not. They're fucking women's champion is Becky Lynch.
Yeah, but
you can't use the developmental excuse anymore. When your women's champion is Becky Lynch, when you have John Cena and The Undertaker showing up, when the previous women's champion before Becky Lynch was Charlotte Flair, when before that the champion was Finn Balor.
Okay, so the point I was gonna make.
Sorry, yeah, I went off there.
No, it's okay. No, you're not wrong. You're actually 100% right. But you preempted what I was going to set you up for. The point I'm
so bad at this podcast, though.
No, you're just ahead.
It's like the Joker, just ahead of the curve.
Ahead of the curve. And the point I was going to make was, or set you up for, really was that it's full of these developmental talents, right? But they realized nobody actually wants to watch that. And if it's going to be competitive, it needs to have some sort of injection. So it seems like their way is right. We can't use... Because here's the thing. What Triple H probably wants to do is AEW. He can't. Because AEW is there, right? So he has to find some way to fuse this together and bring in the normal people. The people who didn't watch AEW, didn't watch NXT, and probably aren't watching AEW. That's who this is for. And how do you bring those in? You bring Becky Lynch in, you bring The Undertaker in, which is very extreme. You bring John Cena in just to get people aware of it. Now, here's the thing. The real question is, am I going to watch NXT next week? No, probably not. I'm not going to watch any real product next week. Probably watch it the week after. You know, it takes something really interesting for me to watch it. Will I watch AEW next week? No. Will I watch it if it's good, though? Absolutely. Will I watch it if you recommend that's good? Oh, I always do. But, like, neither one of these products are hooking me in. But what I am getting from this is, for the first time in a very long time, is that we're probably on the precipice of that changing. And that's what I got from both of these. Because it's like, both of these shows are like, oh, okay, you're both trying now at your, like, your top. Even, like, again, AEW going out and put on a great show doesn't surprise me. They always put on a great show. NXT going out and really putting it to them, that's a different ballgame. And that's the world we're in now. And that's what I wanted to kind of get across with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like, or
am I off base? Because I don't really know.
No, it's actually surprising here because I kind of agree with you. The point of AEW was to be an alternative. And I think we just have to accept that alternative is, like, it's incredible. For fans like me, that is what we want.
Yeah.
And there is a super hardcore base out of there that will keep AEW alive, I think, forever. Right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
But it is not the majority.
No, it's not. No.
It simply isn't.
But it can't be. But it can be.
It can be so incredibly frustrating to be a wrestling fan, and on the one hand you have like Cody Rhodes coming out to make an announcement that we all knew it was on NXT, so it wasn't going to be an actual announcement. But the fact is, and you just have to accept it, the fact is that garners more interest than something like Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. Like, one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen. Ever. Like, an actual work of art. Like, I honest to God, I've watched it 3 times now. And every time I watch it, I still find more little things in it that were just stunning. But I also have to accept that the fact is that there is a bigger audience for sports entertainment.
And I mean, I think, but the thing about it is, sports entertainment doesn't need to be bad. I think what's happened here is, like, with WWE for a very long time, it was objectively bad. You know, like, really bad, like unwatchable bad. I think now that Triple H is there, again, what he wants to do, because we've seen it, was literally what AEW is. AEW took all the stuff that fans wanted, and again, this was confirmed to me at All In and that whole weekend. anyone I talked to, I asked them the same question, and it was that what they always wanted is what AEW is, and that makes sense. It is, like, as you said, a work of art. When it's good, it's incredible. It's more than often good. Like, they do some stupid things. They do some things that trigger my TNA PTSD, but that's like the outliers. When it's just in the ring, it's phenomenal. I mean, look, when Punk was there, he had probably the run of his career, genuinely. And anyone who goes there can have a Christian Cage just having people are finally knowing who he is because of his work there. But at the same time, if you ask somebody, well, who would they rather see? What show would they rather go to? Like, your average person who doesn't really, who still calls WWE WWF.
Who still calls, no, not even worse, who still calls wrestling WWE.
Yeah, exactly. Or WWF even. They probably wouldn't even use WWE. Who would they rather see? What show would they rather go to? It's always going to be a show like we saw on Tuesday. But it's a credit. It is a credit to AEW that in order to be them, they had to pull out these. They had to pull out the Undertaker,
Jesus, Cena, and Undertaker.
I mean,
and Cody's
really,
special announcement.
Yeah, I mean,
do you think that was a jab at Tony Khan's special announcements?
Maybe, but I don't think there was that much thought put into it. I just think genuinely what this probably was this was like a combination of, we need to prove that Vince is actually gone. We need to prove that things are going to be different now, and maybe look, we are going to like properly just wipe these guys out. So it could be a combination of those things, but either way. Sorry, go on. I'll finish that thought in a second. Go on.
No. Go, because you were saying either way. So I think that's a cliffhanger. I need to.
No, I was going to say either way. I mean, I think as a wrestling fan, even someone like me who is like relatively lapsed, I think I'm actually like buzzed to watch both now, to really kind of see, right, they're actually going for it, and WWE isn't just going to sit back because Triple H can do what he wants to do and no one's going to stop him doing it. So that's really cool for me. And then AEW has to respond and up their game. And what does that look like? And that's very interesting as well.
So it's interesting that you use the phrase "up their game," because I think, and like I'm saying this as a diehard AEW fan, I think one of the ways AEW needs to up their game is to kind of downgrade.
Yeah.
So having 3,000 people in a 15,000 seat arena just isn't doing it anymore.
No.
Like if that's what the baseline is, and like I said, it frustrates me that that's what the baseline is, because the product is so good, but it's just a fact that they go around all these different markets. Now, part of the problem is that they've gone around the same markets in the US and they haven't really branched out. Like places like Texas and the west coast of the US were like crying out for AEW shows when it was really hot, and now that it's not as hot, they don't really turn out for them. I think what Tony Khan needs to do is, like, the 15,000 seat arenas, you can gimmick them, you can change the angles and all, so it looks a certain way, but it loses the atmosphere because AEW fans are really passionate. So bring it down. Bring it down to the 5,000 seater arenas, even if it's smaller, even if it's not as impressive. Get them in there, get them packed, and get that atmosphere. Get those, even if it's only 5,000 of them, get those 5,000 fans roaring, because they roar.
But here's the thing, right? Like, I think they went too big very early on.
Yeah.
Like, the Wembley stuff was amazing, and every time they come over to the UK, that's going to happen. I mean, because it's always going to happen. Like, even if they put two lads out there, playing checkers, that would happen. Once they called it wrestling, Kenny Omega and Daniel Bryan playing checkers, 80,000 people would sell out Wembley, right?
Oh, definitely.
It's just what would happen. It's just,
I think, honest to God, I think they need to do a Dynamite Collision European tour.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it would sell out because
go from bloody Dublin right across Europe. I think they'd sell out every one of them.
Oh no, I 100% genuinely think you're right. And the reason for that is because like we are so starved for it, and because it does have that reputation. But week to week, they don't need to run arenas. I mean, it looks pretty bad. It looks pretty bad when it's half empty, right? It really does, and it's becoming a problem. But think about it, right? WCW didn't do that. No. They didn't do it, right? They would do it sometimes, but they would tape in MGM, and that's where they'd run shows. Where crowds were there. They would follow these big events and use them to get their crowd. Over and over again. It was, good and bad, but there were full houses. Like, we watched the last WCW show ever, and it was a full house.
Think back to old NXT, like really good black and gold NXT. There was only a couple of hundred people in that building.
That's all you need.
But when you think back, you don't remember it as that. No. You just remember that the couple of hundred people that were there were rabid.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, so one of AEW's biggest problems, or biggest production problems, has always been that they've never really figured out how to mic the crowd. So they'd have like a massive crowd, and people in the audience would be tweeting, going, "Oh my God, it's fucking deafening here. It's unbelievable here." But that wouldn't be coming across on TV. But you can do that so much easier in a smaller arena.
Here's what you do, right? Here's what I would do, right? If I was doing that, I would buy a space that they have, or rent a space that is just AEW's home base, right? That's where they tape. Maximum 2,000. No. Maximum 2,000, 3,000 people. Make it AEW's space, or even a few of them. Rent it a few of them, like proper territories, right? Where you're going to have your rabid fan base every week. Move back and forward if you need to, or have them there. They'll save tons of money, and it will be a destination for people to go into, right? You can even have ROH somewhere beside it, and then you scale back on the pay-per-views. So you were saying if Ghost House pay-per-view, that's a nightmare, right? Scale it back to 4, but make them big. Have your big one in Chicago, have your one in London, have your one somewhere else. Make those your big 100,000 seers, whatever. Make them events, but at the same time, you're dragging people. You have your core fan base there that's always going to be there. And then you make those tickets worth some serious money. Because here's what I'm saying, right? I remember when Real Gold NXT was doing their first tour over in the UK, and tickets were €1,500. €1,500 for cheap seats in England. Jesus. For context, tickets for Raw, £25. Tickets for All In, £35-40.
For the nosebleeds,
for my one, yeah. Like that shows you that NXT, when it was in the Performance Center, was able to curate that, so it can be done, and that's what I would do.
I think that's actually one. That's one thing that AEW did. Because they were so hot for that initial period, they slightly overvalued their tickets, and then they started doing this thing where they were really like overcharging people for tickets, and people were buying them, but then people weren't buying them, and then people copped on that if they put out a load of tickets at mad prices and nobody buys them,
they drop them.
So what you have is then you have these arenas where it's a week before the event and they've only sold 900 tickets because everybody is waiting for the tickets to drop on the last day, and then they'll buy them. And that's a bad precedent set. Look, we're talking about capitalism here, so it's never going to work this way. But what the sensible thing to do is to fairly price your tickets and keep them at that price. And then people know that whenever the tickets come out, you got to get your tickets.
But see, here's the thing. I think that's counterproductive. And again, learning from lessons, I think using NXT, good NXT, or using even WCW as your, because I mean, they rip everything off from WCW. I don't know why they won't do this. Having your core base where, that's where you go. they should make somewhere, when you're boarding that plane, when you're going, it's like, oh, you're going to go see AEW. They need to make it a brand that people associate with an area, and then move around. Right now, they're trying to compete with WWE at WWE's level, and that's never going to work because they just don't have the reach, man.
But
and no one has that reach.
It's not even that they don't have. I mean, they don't have it, but it's not even that they don't have it. The whole thing is like their initial success was, we are an alternative.
Yeah,
we're not a competitor. We're not trying to beat WWE. We're not trying to take over WWE.
But now they are.
We are something different.
But now they are. That's what I'm saying to you. Like, one of the reasons why I loved TNA so much was when you were watching TNA or when you'd go to a show, you see the six-sided ring and you're like, okay, this is different. This is very different. It's not WWE. It can't be. And even when you're watching NXT initially back in 2015, 2016, you're like, okay, this isn't WWE,
Yeah.
And the mistake that AEW made or are making, and they might be course correcting now, I really hope they do, is
I think for me, they really thought when they had Punk, I think what happened was they got Punk and they thought, holy shit, we have a fucking chance here to actually overtake these bastards.
Right. That's probably what happened.
Obviously it didn't work out. Now, I think long run, the loss of Punk will work out really well for them. Because like he was fired on, what was he fired on? Wednesday, like he was supposed to be on Dynamite, and Khan came out and made an announcement that Punk was fired.
Yeah.
And then that Saturday they had All Out, like one of their biggest pay-per-views.
Mm.
And it felt like old school WWE AEW. It felt like pre-Punk AEW, like not that they were trying to be like a massive 50,000 seat arena, that they had 10,000 people there and they were rabid fans and they were going to put on a wrestling show for them. And Wrestle Dream felt the same. And I think, like, not to lay all the blame on like AEW's issues beyond Punk, but I think just in the same way that Brawl Out was a kind of a negative turning point for them, I think moving on from Punk is going to be a positive turning point for them.
I agree. And I think that it's an interesting time now with the Tuesday Night Wars to be a thing, because it looks like I read a report there that Raw might be moving to Tuesday, and that's kind of what NXT felt like. It's like this is a test for something else, because look, I think the days of NXT being seen as anything other than what it is are kind of gone. It is kind of like, it looked really cool.
So what's the implication there, that if Raw moved to Tuesday, NXT would move to Wednesday? Potentially,
yeah. That's what it looks like.
Do you know what? See, if I was AEW, I wouldn't even because this was WCW's problem. Like, when you look back at the Monday Night Wars, WCW and WWF were both doing insanely well. It didn't matter who won. Like, WWF got 4 million viewers. We only got 3.2 million. Like, what wrestling company nowadays wouldn't slit your throat for
literally
3.2 million viewers?
No, the thing about it is, it's like they lost sight of it, yeah.
Yeah, if they had just calmed themselves and one of them moved to Tuesday, so, honest to God, I think if WWE does some stuff where they move Raw to a Wednesday, or they move it to a Tuesday and they make NXT go to Wednesday, I think Dynamite just goes, yeah, that's fine. Now we're Monday Night Dynamite.
But the thing about it is, I think, moving to Tuesday makes more sense because Monday Night Football does a lot of damage to wrestling. Like American football.
Oh, yeah.
But then,
Dave Meltzer laid out a thing about this, that there's no night of the week. There's basketball, there's hockey, there's UFC is obviously a big thing. There's no night of the week that's just wrestling.
No, that's true. But I mean, there's the one side of the thing where it's like, oh, Monday night is wrestling night, which I mean it is. It would be weird to see Tuesday night. Well, we've seen Tuesday Night Raw on the show, where it did actually confuse us by our timeline because we're like, what is going on? So, that's case in point. But I think this is starting to really set a precedent now, or a taste of things to come. And I'm genuinely, I'm like, okay, for the first time in years, man, I'm like, when Punk was in AEW, I was starting to get there at All In. I was like, okay, this is incredible. I'm actually starting to get like the love of modern pro wrestling again. And it's because it's like, okay, it feels like there's something happening here. Not just because my favorite wrestler is literally running WWE, creative. Like, I mean, I mean that's part of it, but also it's just like, okay, we might actually see something very unique here from both sides. Tuesday really was the start of it, and next week that's kind of where I'm already focused on. I'm like, right, well, what does this actually mean? How is this going to go into Survivor Series? And it's funny because, like, I hate Survivor Series. I think it's a stupid show, but War Games coming in what made me interested again, and now Triple H running. It's like, okay, so that's
are they doing as well? Like, so obviously I don't watch like weekly WWE. What's the crack then? Are they doing like traditional teams again? Are they getting rid of the red shirt, blue shirt?
No, they're doing War Games.
Yeah, but are they doing War Games, red shirt, blue shirt, or are they doing it like?
Apparently it's going to be like storyline driven. So that's what I'm saying to you. Like, it's still quite far out to. Like,
it's so odd that like Survivor Series, even when I was a young fella, and like WWF were only doing the 4 or 5 pay-per-views. Yeah. Survivor Series is always my least favorite as well.
It's just just so unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't like the multi-man matches, but it's actually kind of funny now that it would actually be a great AEW pay-per-view because they do multi-man matches so well.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Like, they do incredible versions. Like, the WWE template for multi-man matches is, oh, it's chaos, but then everyone falls out of the ring and it's only 2 people. Whereas AEW seems to do this really. I don't know how they do it, because I know when I was wrestling, like a 10-minute one-on-one match took all my cognitive ability to keep in my head. They do these really intricate, moves and displacements and sequences between different people, and like, I don't know how you keep that in your head, but it strikes me as something that would suit AEW more than WWE.
No, absolutely. That might even happen. It seems like we've been sitting on this thing for years. I don't know what this thing is. It's just like this holding pattern that WWE was in, even going back, or just kind of just trying to make being the status quo. I think it kind of happened when WCW was bought. For the next couple of years, it was just kind of like, okay, we're going to do our own thing. This is it, and this is what it is. It's for want of a better word, and I will finish this thought. The Vince McMahonization of WWE felt like it was starting last week. And what I mean, yeah, exactly. And but by that I mean, like, the Attitude Era was not because of Vince McMahon creatively. I mean, he was the most successful character ever, the biggest heel ever. He was a big part of it.
He was kind of forced into it.
It was forced into it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because his biggest stars left, and he had
exactly. And I think now WWE Triple H is like, oh, thank God. Okay, I can actually just do this, because WWE would make money in spite of Vince McMahon. Now it's going to make money because it's just going to do what it should do. AEW again exists as an alternative, a very, very good alternative, a phenomenal alternative, because it doesn't cater to those fans. That if WWE had done that, they could have had that as its own brand, and there would have been no AEW at all. But I think we're getting the best of both worlds here. We're having our cake and eating it too, because we're getting WWE as what it always should have been. I'm being hopeful again, because Triple H, my favorite wrestler, is literally running it.
Yep.
And at the other hand,
you think Punk's showing up in a week?
Well, come on. But also we have AEW, who's like, oh man, okay, we're gonna keep this going. This is the ethos of our company. We're gonna kick ass on this too, and it's a phenomenal time to be a wrestling fan. It really is. It really is.
Yeah, it sounds like you're being really sappy and daft saying it, but look, the thing is, you can and you should like both. Like,
yeah,
WWE succeeding shouldn't be a bad thing because, oh my god, like how long was wrestling maligned for, and the
17 years.
The piss taken out of it by the mainstream.
Literally 21 years. Literally 21 years.
Like, it was joke. Like, you had to, almost the fact that you were a wrestling fan, you kind of had to keep it a secret, you know?
So I'm going to tell a story. I remember first time I met Gary, former co-host of the International Desk, was this show before it was a show. And we were working. I know, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Gary. I'm sure you're lovely.
But we were working in a cinema. And I said, hey, I need to leave early to one of the bosses. And he's like, why? What's on tonight? I'm like, oh, WrestleMania's on. You know, and he's like, oh my God. Yeah. And then obviously we became really good friends and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, did a podcast. But even then, you know, anyone who's a wrestling fan, you kind of had to, as you said, keep it a secret. It was a source of great shame to be a wrestling fan as an adult. And now it's not. Now it's much more socially acceptable because it's like, it's, you know, and here's the cool thing, right? I remember when wrestling was the pop culture. The real test, and what I think could happen here, man, I think, you know, call me crazy, but if they do hit that magic point, that cultural relevance, AEW will do it after WWE, but if WWE can do it, they both will. They could become the pop culture again. But we'll have to see. And it's the first time that's actually possible.
These things are cyclical.
They are, yeah.
You know?
They really are, yeah.
Like AEW for its first 3 years was insanely hot. Like, it was literally only 2 years ago that we were saying, oh my God, AEW is going to overtake Raw. And in fact, for 2 weeks, it actually did overtake Raw.
Well, look, I'll put it this way.
And now the notion of that is just daft.
Well, no, Mark Twain said that history doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
Oh, that's a good one.
And this feels like that. You know, AEW could take over Raw, but it will be after some substantial change. And it won't be because Raw is bad, because WWE will always exist as a standard. It will be because, in my opinion, based on how this stuff kind of goes, it will be because both products are so hot. Someone discovers the other, and it's just they like that story more, and that's what it could be. But man, look, I'm going to leave it there for this week. I think we've done a 2-hour podcast. We didn't get to In Your House 6. It's not good. We will talk about it next week, though. We will talk about it next week.
We're going to do In Your House next week, right? But before we go, did you have any thoughts? Just because we get it out of the way, because there'll be no point next week. Did you have any thoughts on either Wrestle Dream or Fastlane? Okay,
I'll be very consistent with Wrestle Dream. All right, Wrestle Dream, I know we talked about Adam Copeland, but that's either here or there. As a card, it's literally what it says it is. It's a dream card. It's a love letter to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think it's so unique and so sincere that it's worth watching, even if you're not a fan of AEW. Fastlane, don't bother. There's nothing really to see. It was okay, but Wrestle Dream definitely is the more superior show.
Yeah, Fastlane was a very typical bog standard C-level pay-per-view that they were obviously just... It's one of those things, because they've gone monthly now, which is why I don't want AEW to go monthly. Yeah. That is just an obligation they had to fulfill and overcome. And they filled the time, they filled the 3 hours, but nothing about it was good or inspiring or even all that entertaining. Like, I think when you have those long bloody waffly promo segments in the middle of a pay-per-view, just doesn't really work.
No, I agree.
Wrestle Dream, yeah, you're right. An absolute dream. I mean, like, the whole pay-per-view is genuinely worth watching, like for different reasons. So like the MJF match is like a really fun crowd pleaser. It's not like a hard-hitting wrestling match. It's a really fun crowd pleaser. But then you get up to the stuff like oh my god, Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page, unbelievable. Bryan Danielson, Zack Sabre Jr., unbelievable. Christian Cage, Darby Allin, like no right to be that good.
I'll be honest with you, that I want to say something that's gonna hurt you, but I don't mean it to.
Go for it.
When I saw that was the main event, I was like, oh, this is gonna be dog shit. Not because Christian Cage was there, but because Darby Allin was there. And I just like him more and more every time I watch a match with him. But holy hell.
When I watched it, what a match.
Unbelievable. Phenomenal match. Phenomenal
completely
match.
And this is like,
and it deserved to be a main event. It really
absolutely
did. So I was wrong. I was completely wrong.
You were wrong, but you were also right, because this is completely vindicating your view on Christian Cage. He has taken that TNT title that was dead, and he has made it important again.
That's very true.
Like, legitimately, it's one of the top 10. Like, MJF is the world title, and he's probably going to have it for a while, because they have to do his Ring of Honor story, and they have to do his Adam. There's so many goddamn Adams in AEW now.
So many Adams.
Adam Cole. They have to do his Adam Cole story.
Baby.
That's actually, I remembered it. And they have to do, the story he has with, your man Adam. They have his issues with Switchblade, Jay White, and
yes.
So there's so much stuff going on with MJF that he's probably going to be the world champion for a while. Man, they have taken that TNT title, and Christian Cage has made it incredible.
He is just Christian Cage, one of the greatest of all time, really is. And I mean, the true great is if AEW exists for nothing else, it's that people know that Christian Cage is what he always should have been. So, man, you don't have to sell me on Christian Cage. I've been selling it for years.
Man, but in terms of this pay-per-view, Wrestle Dream is...
Yes.
This is, like, when you think of what it takes to get a 5-star match, this is a pay-per-view with 3 5-star matches on it. Like, that's insane.
Oh, yeah. Phenomenal.
And 3 5-star matches, and then a couple of 4 and 4.5-star matches, and then like there's maybe 2 matches on it that weren't like sensational. Like it's mental.
But even then, it's just one of those shows where you're like, it's uniquely its own thing. It's uniquely AEW, but also I think they're the shows that you would get that are for wrestling fans and would have a wider appeal as well. Because Zack Sabre Jr., I mean, anytime you see him wrestle, it feels like a big match.
Oh my! And against Bryan Danielson, like it was just.
Oh man! Not only was he in safe hands, but he was in safe hands to have a phenomenal match.
Safe hands, and they had a safe. I don't know. I was going to say a pair of ears, but it's not. But they because of the headphones. But the safe pair of ears calling the match, and John Moxley just kept screaming, well, "This is fucking awesome!" Well,
he got fined a bunch, but I'm not going to lie and say I didn't enjoy it because it was fucking hilarious. So, just, because one thing that Wrestle Dream showed is that the biggest Daniel Bryan fan in the world. It's John Moxley.
It's John Moxley.
It genuinely is. And I was like, okay, this is actually wonderful. So I mean, look, if that was gimmicked, if it wasn't gimmicked, I don't think it was. I think it was just him really enjoying the match.
I think he was just out there because there was actually even the bloody pre-show. Like I won't go through the whole pre-show, but there was a match in the pre-show between Claudio Castagnoli and Josh Barnett.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciated about this was, so obviously we all know wrestling's work. One of the hardest things to work is a shoot.
Yeah.
You know, to make a shoot look.
You work yourself into a shoot, brother.
I hate when you work so hard and then you work yourself into a shoot, brother. No, so Josh Barnett's like this big MMA guy, or not just MMA, but also like different martial arts and jiu-jitsu and stuff. And he fought Claudio Castagnoli, but the style of match they had was MMA. And my God, it is so hard to make wrestling look like MMA, because the minute someone even, like, it just a small thing, pulls a punch or, just moves unnaturally or whatever, like it's lost and it doesn't look convincing, man, these two guys beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Like, it's funny because, like, funny you mentioned that, because it's why I never got into wrestling, like doing wrestling, because I physically cannot pull a punch or a kick.
Yeah, it is, and I actually have the opposite problem of you now, because I learned wrestling before I learned any martial arts, and now I have to force myself to actually punch someone rather than, my instinct is to, like, cup my hand and not make direct contact. But
yeah, that's so weird. That's so weird for me.
Yeah, it's the backwards thing, but it's like when Ronda Rousey and Tank Abbott and Brock Lesnar and all those people came to wrestling, they did really well. But when people from wrestling go the other way, like CM Punk, they never do well.
It's bizarre. It really is bizarre, But yeah, man. I mean, if you haven't seen Wrestle Dream, folks, and you've made it to the end of this podcast, which I love these ones. These are like the Seinfeld podcast. It's a podcast about nothing. But no, if you have, like, genuinely, it's worth your time. The other shows look as good as AEW's Tuesday show was, as good as NXT was on Tuesday. If you're stuck for one show to watch that we haven't covered, it's Wrestle Dream. It really is, and it's not because it's like, oh, it's an AEW show. It's like, no, it's because it was genuinely very good, and you'd do yourself a disservice if you didn't watch it. And
even like, and for a couple of weeks now, I've been railing against the idea of AEW doing like monthly shows or anything, and I think they've really, like, before Wrestle Dream, I was like, all right, you've got 5 pay-per-views now, and they're all amazing. Leave it at that. Don't do any more. And then this Wrestle Dream came along, and it's actually brilliant. Yeah. But leave it at that. Don't do any more.
No, we'll leave it at that. And again, we've done 2 podcasts tonight, folks. If this is your first one checking us out, thank you so much. Go over to Nerd to Know Media, check out the entire shows that we have there. Sometimes you do these extra podcasts. We were supposed to cover In Your House number 6. We will get to that next week. We might actually do 6 and 7 together, because 6 because 6 is so,
we can probably zip through it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's very bare bones, but we will get to it. And yeah, I think we'll do 6 together. Halloween is coming up. I know Christmas is coming up. We'll get to that. Halloween's coming up. I am going to make a list. I'll probably put it up on social media first, the links where you can find it. It's going to be the top 10 spooky inspired weird TNA matches, and we're going to watch them. It's going to be wonderful. And Martin, you're going to understand the glory when TNA was terribly awesome.
Go fuck yourself.
There you go. And you know what we're going to do as well at one point? We're going to do Christian Cage TNA arc.
I'm giddy.
So you can see the instant classic with Tomko, and it's going to be amazing. Because here's the thing: if Tomko was, had it done heroin at home, like a normal person, after stealing that Burger King, after robbing that Burger King, he'd probably be in AEW now. But no, he had to do it in the bathroom.
Sometimes you fancy a Whopper and smack.
But man, no, he would be in TNA there, and then we'd have all the lads, But is there anything you want to plug other than sometimes you need smack?
No, I just like I say, we were away for a couple of weeks. And whenever we don't do these shows, because they come part of our routine, you don't do them, you genuinely miss them. You miss having the crack with Dara, and you miss having the crack with the fans. You miss having, I don't know what it's like for other people out there, but just someone to talk to about wrestling whose eyes don't immediately glaze over. So, yeah, good to be back. Good to be here. I just want to say to all our fans out there, go fuck yourselves.
We'll see you next week, folks. Again, if you want to get ahead of us, you can. In Your House, number 6 and number 7. That's the next show. We'll talk to you here on the Wrestling Rewind. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.